Workers of the world unite!
Many people are excited about socialism. They prefer it to capitalism. So it's time for
a new book called The Case Against Socialism.
You'd think you wouldn't have to write a book to make the case.
That's what a lot of people respond. They say, well, Case Against Socialism, wasn't that decided?
Senator Rand Paul wrote the book because for these people, the case obviously isn't decided. Don't they know socialism's track record?
Hitler's socialism, Stalin's socialism, Mao's socialism. You would think people would have recognized by now.
Paul's chapter titles highlight socialism's problems. It leads to corruption. It's a boot stamping on the human face forever. Because eating your pets is overrated?
You would think that when your economy gets to the point where people are eating their pets, people might have second thoughts about what type of economic system they've chosen.
The Eating Your Pets chapter points out that Venezuelans have lost weight because they cannot find food.
Contrast that with dear leader, with Maduro, who's probably gained 50 pounds.
We don't know that the dictator gained 50 pounds, but he does eat on TV while his people starve.
It really sums up socialism. There's still a well-fed top 1%. They just happen to be the government or those who are cronies or friends of the government.
No Trump, no wall, no USA at all!
American socialists say, we won't be like that.
When I talk about democratic socialism, I'm not looking at Venezuela, I'm not looking at Cuba, I'm looking at countries like Denmark and Sweden.
They all wind up saying, but the kinder, gentler socialism that we want is Scandinavia. That's the kind of socialism, democratic socialism in Scandinavia. So we do a big chunk of the book in there talking about Scandinavia.
Paul's book is different from other politicians' books. Paul did actual research.
It's not true that the Scandinavian countries are socialist.
While Scandinavia tried socialist policies years ago, they then turned away from socialism. They privatized industries and repealed regulations.
Denmark is far from a socialist planned economy.
Denmark's prime minister even came to America and refuted the socialists' claims, pointing out Denmark is now
a successful market economy with much freedom to pursue your dreams and live your life.
In fact, when experts rank economic freedom, Scandinavian countries rank near the top.
They have private property, private stock exchange. We learned that actually Bernie is too much of a socialist for Scandinavia.
Scandinavia did keep some socialist policies, like government-run healthcare. The media say that brings huge benefits. It's why Swedes live longer. But
this is the trick of statistics. You can say, oh, well, the Swedes live longer and they have socialized medicine. And yet, if you look hard at the statistics, it started way before socialized medicine.
60 years ago, Swedes already lived longer.
If you have sauna, you live longer.
Likewise, the socialist welfare state didn't reduce poverty. Scandinavia's culture did.
For me, it's really, really important to work.
Swedes tend to work hard. Paul tells a story about Nobel Prize-winning economist Milton Friedman.
The Swedish economist comes up to him and he says, well, you know, in Sweden we have no poverty. And Friedman responds and he says, well, yeah, in America we have no poverty among Swedish Americans.
Today, Swedes in America have a much higher standard of living than Swedes in Sweden. Danish Americans, too. Socialism simply does not create that magic world of prosperity plus equality that today's socialists suggest. But the biggest case against it is that it crushes freedom. Socialists get elected by promising fairness and equality.
The only way you can enforce those things is you have to have an equality police or a fairness police, and ultimately they show up with truncheons.
Tanks, tear gas, and riot police.
Why does it always lead to a boot stamping on your face forever?
If you want complete socialism, you have to take the property from people.
Expropiese, expropiese.
Here's Hugo Chavez doing that.
Expropiese, señor alcalde, expropiese.
The best kind of socialist leader ends up having to be ruthless because you can't be a kinder, gentler socialist leader and get the property.
So many choices!
By contrast, capitalism largely lets individuals make our own choices.
It's a direct democracy every day. You vote either for Walmart or you vote for Target. You vote with your feet, with your wallet, and the people who succeed are the people who get the most votes, which are dollars. And as long as there's no coercion, it seems to me that that would be the most just way of distributing a nation's economy.
At your service.
It's good that Senator Paul's around to tell his fellow politicians the truth about socialism.
It doesn't work. It's a recipe for disaster. Look what happens as we approach socialism around the world. It's a history of famine and genocide.
Our white families are under attack. What do?
Stalin, Hitler, Mao, Pol Pot, Castro, Chavez, Maduro. It doesn't work.